Fling out the flag over creek and crag, pink, white, and green, so fair, so grand. Long may she sway over Bide and Bay. Around the shores of Newfoundland, the pink, the rose of England shows, green St. Patrick's emblem bright, while in between the spotless sheen of Andrew's cross displays the white. Then hail the pink, the white, the green, our patriot flag, long may it stand. Our sirens twine their emblems shine to form the flag of Newfoundland. Fling out the flag over creek and crag, pink, white, and green, so fair, so grand. Long may she sway over Bide and Bay. Around the shores of Newfoundland, around the shores of Newfoundland. Whate'er betide our ocean bride, that nestled midst Atlantic foam, far and wide will raise our pride, our native flag o'er hearth and home. Fling out the flag over creek and crag, pink, white, and green, so fair, so grand. Long may she sway over Bide and Bay. Around the shores of Newfoundland, should e'er the hand of fate demand some future change in our career, ne'er will yield on flood or field the flag we honor and revere. Fling out the flag over creek and crag, pink, white, and green, so fair, so grand. Long may she sway over Bide and Bay. Around the shores of Newfoundland, fling out the flag over creek and crag, pink, white, and green, so fair, so grand. Long may she sway over Bide and Bay. Around the shores of Newfoundland, around the shores of Newfoundland, around the shores of Newfoundland.
So, the high school drama teacher over here accuses others of liking the sounds of their own voices.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I was a high school teacher before getting into politics, and I'm having a little trouble remembering what exactly the job that the Leader of the Opposition had before getting into politics.
Yes, and he left right in the middle of the semester, and I'm having trouble remembering why.
The small fringe minority who are holding unacceptable views do not represent the views of Canadians whose beds are filled with people who chose not to get vaccinated. The risk posed to all of us by unvaccinated people. It's never too late to do the right thing. We'll be immensely pleased to be able to give you that first dose of vaccine.
I'd like to welcome the fake news media,
and the ideology in order to push particular agendas. And I think some of those agendas, unfortunately, pretty hardcore, pretty extreme. The power of misinformation, because so much, of what we hear coming from these protesters from, a scientific perspective just isn't true. And
Can you state categorically? You are fake news.
Sir.
You are fake news, indeed. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Rock Solid News. It is 10:30, just past on the Rock, and it is Sunday, April the 7th. hello to everyone in the Rumble comment section. You won't be showing up on my screen. Unfortunately, they still haven't figured that out. But my Twitter family, you will be showing up on the screen. So I can keep an eye on the chat here on my own device. As I mentioned, it is Sunday. It's April 7th, and we got a great one for you tonight. We're going to wrap up the weekend of ill-intentioned protesters. It's a working title. The fishermen, as you know, here in Newfoundland, were on Confederation Hill in late March. They showed up demanding what seemed to be unknown to the public. In fact, their visit seemed to be unknown to the public until they got there. And then we started finding out as the people. And what we found out was eventually what they wanted was free enterprise. And what that means is they want the government to stop regulating who's allowed to process, who's allowed to buy, who's allowed to sell, and at what price. Now, if this seems like a big ask, you should know that every other province in Canada has free enterprise, quote unquote, in their fishery. It is only Newfoundland who does not have the free enterprise. Now, as you know, as we got into April Fools and the Canadian-wide Axe the Tax rally, sponsored by one of your favorite politicians you just saw in the intro, Pierre Poilievre, he fully supported the Axe the Tax rallies across the province, and they were to coincide with the fishing protest that was occurring here in Newfoundland. Not ideal for the province. So the province gave them what they wanted. They got their deal. And the fishermen and the union leaders came out to the protesters and proudly proclaimed, "We got our deal. Go on home, boys." So all hands left Confederation Building, drove back across the province, and they got ready to put their boats in the water because the crab fishery was starting. The crab fishery has been started now for 5 days, 6 days. Boats are still not in the water here in Newfoundland. People are starting to get ready in anticipation. However, this weekend, much has unfolded. We did have a live stream from Jason Sullivan, who is a emerging leader within the fishermen unofficially, and he has a Facebook group called the Newfoundland Fishermen's Forum. It's a private Facebook group with 16,000 members. And tonight he was doing a live stream started by himself and had it worked up to 1.6 thousand viewers live. And then he brought in another well-liked fisherman from the community. And these guys are from the Bay Bulls area, just in case you're wondering. He brought in another well-liked fisherman to interview him. And they still weren't done. As the time of which I started this broadcast, they weren't done. I had intended on having them finish so that I could download their video and rebroadcast some of it to you. That'll have to wait for another day. They had well over 2,000 viewers into their interview segment of his live stream interview today. This is just a fisherman, Jason Sullivan. And he led us, we the people, in on some details about what's been occurring since they left Confederation Building and apparently got their deal, so to speak. Check out the Rumble comments. Band Chimes Bama on fire as usual, commenting on the intro video by the looks of it. So before we get into any of what Sullivan got in, and his live stream was intense. Let's put it this way. He held no punches. He called out everyone that needs to be called out, and he provided support to those who need it. And it turns out, in an evolving sense, that the name John Efford has been thrown around a lot. And if you're in Newfoundland, you should know that name. It's not the John Efford you're thinking about, but it is his son. And he is another emerging player in this game. So we got to figure out the characters. Before we can go any further and before anyone can really assess what's happening, you have to know the players. So on the government side, you've got the Minister of Fisheries, and you can't make up the names any better for a story like this. You notice, I notice anyways, in high-profile mainstream media cases, a lot of the people seem to have really funny names. I'll draw your attention back to Mr. Bitcoin or whatever he was that was caught and let go and frauded a bunch of people out of his money. And his last name was Bankman Fried. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about when I say funny names, situationally speaking. So our Minister of Fisheries here is Elvis. His first name is Elvis, and his last name is Loveless. And our Premier, the man who runs the province in terms of provincial government, Andrew Furey. So we have a governing Liberal Party, Premier Andrew Furey, and his Minister of Fisheries, Elvis Loveless. And again, I wish I was making that up, but I promise you I'm not. Now we get to the Fishermen's Union. The Fishermen's Union is called the FFAW for short. The Fish and Food Allied Workers Union is what the FFAW stands for. They are essentially the only union in Newfoundland representing fishermen. Interestingly enough, a Newfoundland nationalist, a Newfoundland separatist, a former journalist and politician, Ryan Cleary, started up his own fishing union here years ago, probably about anywhere from 5 to 10. And that union was squashed because it actually had the intention of representing the rights and will of the fishermen, God forbid. And as Jeff so astutely pointed out, the Loveless Fury combo there in terms of the government. So the FFAW, the Fish and Food Allied Workers Union, they are the big players in the game representing, quote unquote, the fishermen and their best interests. On their side, you have President Greg Pretty and you have Secretary/Treasurer Jason Spingle. Again, the names, as you get into details, you might draw your own parallels to jokes when it comes to the names here. But so Greg Pretty is the president, and Jason Spingle, he's the secretary and treasurer for the union. And the other main character, besides the guy who's live streaming now, or was tonight, sorry, anyways, that I want you guys to pay attention to is John Efford. And if you're in Newfoundland, you know the name, John Efford. He was a former cabinet minister. He was a minister of fisheries here provincially, I believe, if not federally, but I believe it was provincial minister of fisheries. His son is also named John, last name Efford, and he is a fisherman out of Port de Grave, it seems. And he has emerged ever since that original protest, that one that we had back in the late March, just before the Axe to Tax protest. John Efford emerged as a unofficial representative of the fishermen in terms of parlaying their distrust of the union to the union. Because what was happening is the union was telling them when they were allowed to protest, who they were allowed to protest with, and who they weren't allowed to protest with. And then the union was saying, we're going to go in and we're going to meet with the premier and the minister, and we're going to make a deal for you. Well, the fishermen are complaining, we're here in this parking lot because we don't trust you. It's been decades of this. You have never brokered ever a deal in our favor. So why would we trust you to do that now? So they kind of, without electing, they kind of just out of the dust and out of the rubble and the chaos emerged John Efford as a decent speaker with enough passion to be able to say, let me speak for you guys and let me be at that table. That's important. He was at the table for the initial agreement. We're going to take a look at the initial agreement now, because this is what got the fishermen to leave Confederation Building. They showed up, they kept their boats out of the water, they didn't start crab season, and they showed up guns blazing, metaphorically speaking, of course, and lit up the parking lot of Confederation Building with intentions to stay there until they got free enterprise. That's what they wanted. So with free enterprise in mind, let's take a look at what they got. This is the letter that came out of the meeting. So while the fishermen were in the parking lot protesting, you had President Greg Pretty and Secretary/Treasurer Jason Spingle inside Confederation Building meeting with the Minister of Fisheries, Elvis Lovelace, and the Premier. Now, the only difference is the fishermen had John Efford in there present. So as I zoom in here so we can get a better look, here is the commitment that was agreed upon during our meeting. This was on March 22nd. So they're going to have outside buyers for all species. Remember, that doesn't say free enterprise. That doesn't say an open process for who gets to be an outside buyer. It just says because currently it's only buyers inside the province that are approved by the government and quote unquote the union. And they go on to state in that section that they're going to open up the application process, and it's only going to be one page. Because remember, the uneducated fishermen of our province wouldn't be able to apply for such a lengthy application if it wasn't so simple. So it's only one page, and they're going to register the same as any other business operating in Labrador, and it does not fall under the monitoring committee, which is the following: the monitoring committee is to be made up of FFAW members, which is not specified who, myself, which is seemingly John Efford, government official, that's supposed to be pluralized, and the remaining members to be determined. I want you to pay attention to the language that gets used throughout this letter. When we're done, ask yourself, or I'll be asking you, has there been any agreement? Has there been anything actually agreed upon and committed to? So this monitoring committee is going to be made up of these people plus people to be determined. And they claim it's going to be done in a transparent way. Okay. Well, whatever that means, they're not specifying. In terms of caps, they've committed to adjusting the caps. And the monitoring committee is being set up to move the caps, even further through the season as needed to keep competition. Again, no actual commitment, nothing hardlined, nothing agreed upon in actual principle, just theoretical. Number 4 is the new processing licenses. The government has said they will be going forward, increasing processing licenses, allowing more of them. But again, what does that mean? In real, actual, tangible action, nothing committed to. They've committed to undertake a deep review into corporate control. And the monitoring committee, again, this is John Efford that's going to be sitting on it, will be involved in that one. Members to be determined, as we saw before. Nikki Nindor just rightly pointed out in the Rumble comments that vote harder. And if we vote harder, possibly we'll get ourselves out of this. That's, of course, sarcasm. And there are many more details to be worked out. The government has committed to work with us to get this done in 5 business days. And this will take time to put together and ensure a deal will be done for what? For free enterprise. So the meeting that occurred, this was the result of that meeting. In that meeting, there was the FFAW, the president, the treasury. You had Minister Elvis Lovelace, who has left the building with all the fish, as Davey pointed out, and John Efford. In that letter, was there anything that anybody saw that actually spoke to any actual tangible action being taken? There was a lot of language, government language being used, committed to, looking at, increasing, that sort of thing. But in terms of actual action, again, I didn't. So that's what came from the original protest. Now, ever since then, remember that letter says 5 business days. So they've got 5 business days to table an actual offer. If you look at your calendar, you'll astutely see, or if you were here at the very beginning, you will remember that I told you it's Sunday, April the 7th. That means the 5 business days has passed, and this is the reason for the angry live stream from the fisherman known as Jason Sullivan, fishing out of Bay Bulls. I will end up sharing this stream to you guys. I'm checking it. I still think he's actually going. He had over 2,000 people live watching him. And these are almost all Newfoundlanders. There's 16,000 people in the group. It's a private Facebook group. He tries to only allow people who are living here on the island to even join the group. That might change now as of late as he's trying to promote what's happening. But other than that, no, it's mostly Newfoundlanders. So this is a good place to get to get the temperature of the room when it comes to how the fishermen feel. So again, here's the letter that they got. Now, John Efford. This is a post he made on Facebook. It says 5 hours ago. This is from Saturday, which was yesterday. The Premier Andrew Furey met with fishermen on Fogo Island, which is in the central northern region of the island. And it seems as though this was not a public meeting, but it seems as though from the reaction of fishermen, that meeting was not pleasant. Since then, that meeting occurred on Friday, and since then, the fishermen and John Efford and the union have all been rapid fire talking about a brand new protest that's going to occur on Monday, as you'll see here in the post, and fishermen talking about keeping their boats out of the water and not fishing, or getting in the water, fishing crab, and not coming back to Newfoundland to take your catch and land it in Nova Scotia and sell it at a reasonable price in Nova Scotia, and then turn around and sail your boat back to Newfoundland. All this occurred ever since that original protest. And this is John Efford, the newly minted unofficial spokesman of the fishermen, without being part of the union, so to speak. Talking about how they've already moved mountains. April 6th, they have time on their side to get this pricing issue resolved, which they don't. The fishery's already started, just so we're clear. They have someone's attention because now we're hearing rumors, and he's not ready to name the time and a place, but there's going to be a protest on Monday. And in case of a change of scenery. Now, this Monday that he's speaking of, that's tomorrow. Today is Sunday, April 7th. He's referring to tomorrow, April the 8th. In case of a change of scenery, he's not going to say, but he will update tomorrow no later than noon, which is today at noon, which has already passed. So we'll get to his update. And then he goes on to talk about some of the issues. But the main portion of this initial post from John Efford is to talk about the fact that he's bringing attention to a protest Monday, likely at Confederation Building. Again, he's saying he's not ready to release the details of that yet. After that, 3 or 4 hours after that, he posted this. And this was in the fishermen's group as well as posted to John Efford's page himself. Because of allegations that have surfaced yesterday and need time to uncover facts, these allegations are about the meeting in Fogo with the premier and there. We have decided to postpone Monday's protest. We're not canceling our protest. We're canceling Monday's protest only. And then he goes on to say, we're still united and this is a minor setback. We're dealing with it, but whatever. So now we have the stage set. This is what set the stage for temperatures boiling and for an extremely passionate and well-needed live stream from an actual fisherman. Again, I don't have the link because he's not done yet. I can't download it until he's finished. And it is a private Facebook group, so you can't even share the link. If you're not in the group, you won't be able to see the content. When it's done, I will download it. I can post it in its entirety, or I can chop it up to just get relevant info out. However, it's passionate, and I will give you a forewarning. Adult language, so don't watch with your kids around, or if you do, give them a warning about what they're about to hear. It's a real Newfie, a true Newfie fisherman with a rum and coke in front of him, talking to you, the people, about what's actually happened, what's gone on behind the scenes that you're not going to know about. And now that we know the players, now that I've introduced them and you know who I'm talking about, President Greg Priddy and Secretary Treasurer Jason Spingle, these two individuals do not seem to have the confidence of the fishermen. I don't want to say of the people. And I do want to reiterate that I'm not a is there anyone named Swindle? Well, he's Spingle, Swindle. He's pretty close, Dork. He's very passionate in his live stream, and he's telling you the things that occurred. So basically, what he's saying is that the fishermen, and yes, women, the fishers, don't seem to have confidence in President and or Secretary Treasurer Greg Priddy or Jason Spingle. Reason being, they've had plenty of opportunities to solve this problem. They've had plenty of opportunities to rectify this in years past, even in this year past, and they simply haven't. This is where John Efford comes in. John has kind of stepped up as an unofficial leader, and he's the one that's kind of pushing the union. Now, when you get to the live stream from this fisherman, and this fisherman had another prominent fisher on. So the live streamer, Jason Sullivan, and he's a fisherman out of Bay Bulls. Jason Sullivan. The guest he had on, I didn't catch his name, but he's also a well-respected fisherman. It seems as though they are at their breaking point here in Newfoundland, and they're basically willing to tell the union where to go and how to get there. And I will promise you, I'm not usually the one who uses the more mild language. Here, I'm telling you this. He held no punches. He named names, named specifics. And it's up to him to get this message out, and it's up to we, the people, to help him get it out. So that's what we do here at Rock Solid News. As often as we can, we like to circumvent the cathedral media, the mainstream media, the Laurentian elites, and try to get messages like this out. So if they're going to protest, whether that be at DFO offices, whether that be at Confederation Building, or even better, if they decide to put their boats in the water and go to Nova Scotia to sell their product, it's going to cause a fuss here in the province. And it's going to, the Newfoundland Liberals are going into an election season. For them to have such a blunder where they're holding back free enterprise from the only province that doesn't get it. Nova Scotia, the next province over, has free enterprise to the point where fishermen in Newfoundland are considering cutting into their own profits to sail their boats across the strait and go to Nova Scotia to be able to sell their product. Things are so bad, and if you're not a Newfoundlander, you might not quite get the nuance of this. But if you're a Newfoundlander, I hope you do. Things are so bad in the Newfoundland fishery that there's a man named John Efford who seems to have the backing of the people. I never thought I'd say that as a Newfoundlander. There is something else. As I touched on in the intro to the show, Ryan Cleary, he's a former journalist. He's a former politician, both federally and provincially. Also started up his own fishing union here. He's a Newfoundland nationalist, a Newfoundland separatist. And he believed 10, 15 years ago that the FFAW was a fraud, that it was just lining the pockets of corrupt individuals and their family members. I mean, many agreed with him at the time, but obviously the power of the cathedral media stood behind the FFAW and not the newly emerging We the People Union. So he had one called Fish NL. FishNL was an acronym, and that was going to be a competing union against the FFAW. That got squashed, and in 2019, he had to officially fold it. It was mired in controversy solely from the public perspective. There was never anything actually wrong with what happened. It was a competing union against the bigwigs. It was a We the People union that was going against the bigwigs. And if they started to gain too many members, they would get the power of the Newfoundland fishery, and we couldn't possibly have that. Now, Mr. Cleary has re-emerged in the talking of fisheries here in the province. See if we can, here we go. Ryan runs a fishing co-op now called the Fisheries Protective Co-op. And Ryan is looking to circumvent the current scenario with the buying, processing shenanigans, debacle that's occurring. And he's offering now outside buyers looking to purchase snow crab, lobster, cod, turret, what else? Etc. Sorry. They can reach out to the co-op, and the co-op, he claims, will broker the supply of all the product you can handle from independent licensed inshore enterprise owners. And he's got his contact information here, email, cell phone, and web address. And this is his website here as well. And he does a weekly blog, but the FPCNL, the Fisheries Protective Co-op of Newfoundland and Labrador, they're seemingly trying to offer a second way out. And you'll see here the picture. Some of my people will appreciate the angle of his arm as he waves to the crowd. But anyways, Ryan Cleary, the Newfoundland separatist, the former politician, the former journalist, albeit not exactly mainstream, but still a journalist nonetheless, is now working alongside of the fishermen once again. He tried once, and some fishermen tried to take his help, some didn't, but more so he was attacked by the mainstream and had to fold. And now he's back offering to broker the supply of all the product you can handle from independent licensed inshore enterprise owners, which is of course fishermen. Again, that's coming from Ryan Cleary. And the reason he's having to do that is because of this, as we're all aware, the deal that the fishermen got that allowed them to leave, which was no deal with no commitments. Had they actually gotten free enterprise, there would be no need or no ability for the Fisheries Protective Co-op to have this offer to be made. John Efford, familiar name, unfortunately, and seemingly the new face of the fishermen. So, there you have it. That's basically a wrap for us. That's just a recap of what's gone on so far. A quick update from tonight on the actual live stream from one of the main fishermen involved. We're going to see tomorrow what actually goes down. John Efford has still said in some of his posts that the weather Monday morning is going to be good, supposed to be good. So if that means anything, there may still be a protest planned, and yours truly will be covering it if it is. But until then, all we know for sure is that the fishermen know they got screwed now. They're certain of it, and they're seemingly starting to organize in a way that might actually benefit the fishermen for once, rather than the Laurentian elites elected to steal your money and your fish and your livelihood and your culture and your history and your future. With that in mind, guys, that's all we've got here tonight at Rock Solid News. It was just an update on the fishery. Keep your eyes peeled because we are going to be providing updates as this situation unfolds. And you can bet your bottom dollar the gender studies graduates at the CBC are not going to cover this the way it needs to be covered. So it's up to people like you and I to reach out to these fishermen, get their stories, and tell them. Tell their story. Every time they have a story to tell, it needs to be told by everyone, not just by the CBC and how they decide the story needs to be told, approved by said governing forces. So that's it, guys. Thanks for listening. Sunday, April the 7th. This has been another edition, evening news of Rock Solid News. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, you people, you stay sovereign, okay?